I'm saying, what if you were trained from very young that it's okay if the person you select is so desirable that when she goes around, people want to be with her, and mostly she doesn't, mostly she desires you, but every once in a while she desires someone else. Like, how is that is that the end of the world? Like, yeah.
I kind of think this alternative worldview you're saying is we probably need to get there, because it does seem like exclusive jealousy seems like a really immature thing. Like, who cares? Like, like, why does it matter if your girlfriend is attracted to some other guy and fools around with someone like that? It shouldn't matter so much. And it shouldn't do what it does, which is trigger intense, like, murderous jealousy.
Yeah. Which destroys your relationship. That doesn't make any sense. It destroys, like, because this happened to me in the past 10 years a couple times, because my relationships in the past 10 years have been very loosely defined.
Warning, this podcast is for entertainment only and not intended for medical purposes.
I have a really interesting conundrum going on in my brain about, like, what we are taught when we're small, and then how that leads to the idea of sex positivity as more of an attitude, right? Like, I think of this in my own experience of being in these relationships where it's not clear who you're dating at first, because you're trying to figure out who is your next girlfriend. And so you meet this one and you're like, oh, I don't know. And you meet that one. And then you end up, like, maybe hooking up with this one and you're not sure. And then, this other one finds you because you're single. And she's like, oh, come hang out with me. And then you go and you hook up with her. And now you've hooked up with two girls. And so then, like, if you're honest about that, one of them can have the experience of feeling like cheated on.
Yep.
Right? And that one is so interesting in its design of, like, how many people are you supposed to date, and then when you're dating them, can you sleep with them? And then that goes into this larger idea when I think of real sex positivity. If you were truly to embrace this as a concept, it's like, well, if you're in a relationship, it's a committed relationship, and there you are, and you're on some trip somewhere, and a very attractive person finds you, and you two have a lot of chemistry, and you decide, we should have sex for this evening, and then we'll never see each other again, right? Like, is that wrong?
And the two different camp responses to that. The sex positive is, of course it's not wrong, because two mature consenting adults should get to have fun, explore, play, do whatever the fuck they want. Like, if they want to, like, play bingo, they should be able to play bingo. If they want to have missionary sex, they should be able to have missionary sex. If they want to, like, have super kinky sex, they should get to have super kinky sex. Who cares? Let them be creatively exploratory however the fuck they want, which seems so obviously right.
Yeah.
But this side says when sex gets decoupled from marriage, in little things like this, it looks fine. But what actually happens is this societal reverberating wave where sex, the primitive, selfish, animalistic side of us that sort of needs to be in shackles is released from shackles. And what happens is societal fucking dissolution and kids being raised in a shitty way. And incels, and a wave of incels, and a wave of women who are 40 who've never really been in a relationship, never been married, and have no kids. And it's like that wave, that societal wave is what has happened, and it's fucked up.
Okay, so that's where we are today. But let's imagine we get to a new place and then fast forward into the future, right? Suppose we raise our kids today and we say, like, hey guys, this is how you do it as a young guy, as a woman, here's how you go, right? And so they're raised with this idea that yes, you can like pair up and you can be a couple as long as you want, and then whenever you want, you can not be a couple, and you can raise kids in a coupled household or in a multiple household. You can date in two households. You don't have to move in together once you start dating, like on and on and on. All of that becomes the norm. And then it's like, what if then later on you didn't have to you didn't have to worry about the fact that your chick was on this trip, and when she was on a trip, you can kind of tell by the stories and you can tell by who was there that they all met these guys and that they all hooked up, and clearly your chick did too because she's a fucking 10. And so for sure, like because you selected one who has ultimately the run of all, like, so for sure, should she want to, and because humans are opportunistic, including women, like, she gets the best dude. And so then, she probably hooked up with a guy. And so then why do you have to sit there and suffer in your own fucking stupid design that someone fed you as a kid because she went on a trip? Because then what do? I've watched guys then just spend all this time like trying to control their women from, you can't go on that trip. You can't go because, dude, that slut Megan's going to be there. You know, fuck that. You can't hang out with her because but like I've dated women that all their friends are sluts, and like, and so then what does that mean? My girlfriend is, she's a total slut, dude. Like, I'm like, fuck it. Like, yes, that has happened. And it's like, what are you supposed to do? Give yourself a hard time, give her a hard time, create this. I mean, it just literally creates a terrible scenario. And
absolutely. And so what do you think the alternative is?
Well, so I'm imagining this, right? Because this idea of sex positivity comes from this fucking German dude, Wilhelm Reich. Like, remember Wilhelm?
Yeah.
Right? So, like that was, I don't know when he was. It predates the 1980s and all this split between the feminism, but the idea of sex positivity, I know that some European countries are more promoting this from when kids are younger, and now they're doing it here in American schools, and there's a lot of uproar like, don't you teach our kids how to give blowjobs, and how dare you fucking blah, blah, blah. Like all this, like there's a lot of backlash to our puritanical roots and trying to become sex positive. But like, how are you going to raise people? And people like listening, anyone who listened to this would just be like, how fucking crazy am I that I would somehow be like, yeah, well, if your chick goes and she wants to like hook up with someone and she does, you guys are together, right? So she fucking cheated on you, and you gotta have a whole emotional thing and then get really bent and now spend the rest of your life in couples therapy dealing with this shit. Right? Really? That's the current attitude. But I'm saying, what if you were trained from very young that it's okay if the person you select is so desirable that when she goes around, people want to be with her, and mostly she doesn't, mostly she desires you, but every once in a while she desires someone else. Like, how is that the end of the world? Like,
I kind of think this alternative worldview you're saying is we probably need to get there, because it does seem like exclusive jealousy seems like a really immature thing. Like, who cares? Like, you know, like, why does it matter if your girlfriend is attracted to some other guy and fools around with someone like that? It shouldn't matter so much. And it shouldn't do what it does, which is trigger intense, like murderous jealousy.
Yeah. Which destroys your relationship. That doesn't make any sense. It destroys, like, because this happened to me in the past 10 years a couple times, because my relationships in the past 10 years have been very loosely defined,
right?
Which then promotes this kind of behavior, right?
Yeah.
And so then and then every once in a while I'll realize, oh, you were out there and you clearly hooked up with someone else. And then I'll get this feeling of like, well, fuck you then. Like,
right,
I'll go hook up with this other girl too then. And it's just like this pointless tit for tat bullshit. Like, oh, I'm going to go fuck around too then. And like,
so the sex positive or the polyamorous community would say that we should try to overcome this primitive jealousy thing. That the primitive jealousy thing is based on a really immature ego that wants to control everything, and that's just fucking immature. And we need to like try to transcend it. We need to like let go of our immature, jealous ego control thing and try to transcend that. That's the polyamorous community. And honestly, it seems like they're probably fucking right. But the evolutionary psychology community says something very, very different, which is like, you can try to transcend that like you can kind of try to transcend having 5 fingers, buddy. Like, good luck growing a 6th finger, because evolutionarily, you were designed to mate guard because that was fucking selected, you know?
Yeah.
That was advantageous. Mate guarding. People who were psycho mate guarders, their DNA was spread. So we all have the psycho mate guarding DNA in us.
I mean, that's probably why internally, even while I'm sitting here trying to promote this for myself to be healthier, because I tend to historically, maybe I will stop doing this, but historically I select attractive, slutty women as my partners. And so then as a result, they tend to stray as I give them as much rope as possible to hang themselves. And then they do. Right. And then I'm like, wow, what a surprise. But in the meantime, I'm fucking around too. And then people would be like, oh, well, you're doing that so that you have license to just fuck around. So you're secretly poly. But I am not. I do not like the polyamorous crew. I don't like their rap. I don't like their terminology. I don't like their fucking faces. I hate the way they look. Dude, so, like, I'm serious. This whole, like, what's their term of like, non-something monogamy? It's like
ethical non-monogamy.
Ethical non-monogamy. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, what? Dude, no one is going to agree to this unless you've been raised as I'm talking about. You have to, we have to raise a whole new crop of human beings. Or you will, from the very beginning, know that it's terribly wrong that this person who you knew was a slut, she's friends with Megan, who is whorish, and then, like, and you'd be like, stop using all these fucking terms. Like, you're such a fucking, like, woman hater. You're a these are all misogynistic terms. And I'm like, no, I'm talking about women, sex positive women who date people and then cheat on them constantly. Right? Like Heidi.
Yes.
You know?
Right.
Like, dude, Heidi had a bowl in the living room of photographs of all her dudes. It was the strangest thing I've ever seen. I remember meeting her and sitting there and having coffee in the morning, and she's just going through telling me about each one, la la la. And then later on, I realized, oh, she's still in contact with all these people.
Yep.
Right.
So, okay. This helps boil down. The evolutionary psychology world says the sex positive world is living in fantasy land.
Yes.
And the reality is that our great-great-great-great-great-grandparents were successful in terms of genetic selection because they were psycho mate guarders.
Yeah.
And they were fucking cheaters. And they were the ones that successfully passed their genes on better than everyone else. The ones that just let their mates go off, other dudes passed their genes on. The ones that didn't try to have sex with as many people as they could, they didn't pass their genes off as much. So all of our grandparents were like cheaters and they wanted to fuck a lot of different people and they tried to prevent their people from fucking anyone else.
Yeah.
In like super extreme psycho ways. So that's the genetic inheritance that we all have. So that's why evolutionary psychologists say that the sexual liberation thing is not nearly as simple as we think. And B, the traditionalists say, so the solution to that is an intense cultural cage around sexuality so that we can't let our natural sides loose, that we cage ourselves within marriage or something that keeps society stable. Because if we all let ourselves loose, it turns into this fucking sexual warfare.